All right, Marcus, you have the floor.
Okay. Hold on a second here. What happened? Okay. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Marcus Kreutzer. I'm the chair of the political science department, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of a backstory to how this event got together. About a month ago, we had an event trying to show students the various job opportunities that are available at the federal government down in DC. So we had one of our colleagues, Deborah Seligson, who worked in the State Department for 20 years, as well as an alum who works at the IRS, give us sort of an overview of the different job opportunities and particularly strategies for how to apply for those jobs. And in the context of that conversation, the Peace Corps kept coming up because for a lot of jobs, particularly in sort of the State Department, development, economic development, in development sort of jobs, you need a 2-year, 2 years of experience. And it's a catch-22 situation because you can only get those 2 years if you have some experience, but without the experience, you don't get that job. So the solution for breaking this is the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps gives you those 2 years of sort of experience, but it does not require you to have prior experience necessarily. So for any of you who are interested in sort of State Department jobs, or particularly economic development jobs in the developing world, the Peace Corps is really one ticket. I mean, that's just one of the many benefits for applying for Peace Corps jobs. And so that's how we put that sort of event together. Another motivator was that we've seen the numbers in the political science department, number of majors have gone up from 250 to 330 as of last count. And so we had the Philadelphia Inquirer contacting us, trying to figure out what's happening. And I sent out an email to all our majors, and many of them responded as to why they decided to choose political science as a major. And one common theme that ran throughout it is that in part through the Trump era and the COVID, growing realization that politics is not something abstract. It's something that actually affects people's lives. And the Black Lives Matter and the protests last summer hit that home just as much. And so there was sort of this realization that politics matters, that, we're inheriting a pretty broken world. And so we want to find out a little bit more of how this world works and what we can do to make it a better place. And so political science, together with a couple of other sort of majors, seem to be a good venue for pursuing those sort of goals. So that's the starting point, right? We can get you going, but you're graduating and then you get to do something afterwards. And that's where the Peace Corps comes in and what the goal of this event is. So I hope you find it helpful, and I think I'll hand it over to you now, Taylor.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. And that was just a wonderful introduction, Marcus. Thank you. I just wanted to say something really shortly. If you are interested in continuing to receive information about events similar to this, please make sure you're filling out your career interests on Handshake. I'm going to send a link to show you how to do that. That is how we send from the Career Center information to students. And additionally, I will be passing it over to Daisy, who will be talking about the Peace Corps. If you all have any questions at the end, feel free to use the raise your hand function, and I'll call you in the order that you raise your hand. Or if you prefer, you can put your question in the chat and I'll read it on your behalf. And with that being said, Daisy, I will be passing it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much again for just having me here and allowing me to share a bit more about Peace Corps. This is something I feel super passionate and excited about. So I'm Daisy. I'm the regional recruiter based in the Philly area. I also cover Are you still able to see or hear the video?
Hey, Daisy, I'm just hearing you now. I don't know what happened. My Zoom closed down and then opened back up really nicely. It opened very nice. I didn't have to do anything, but I I haven't heard anything. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Give me 1 second then.
Daisy, I think it cut out when you were introducing yourself.
Oh, okay.
That was the last thing we heard, was you just talking about Philly and introducing yourself.
Oh no, sorry. This whole time I'm like, oh, they're hearing the video. So again, I'm Daisy. I'm the Peace Corps Regional Recruiter based in Philly. I also cover Central Pennsylvania. So I guess I just wanted to, before formally going through my experience and involvement with Peace Corps, I wanted to show a quick video. I'm not sure if that's what caused the issue, so I'll try to share it again. For just 1 second, and then if you're not able to see or hear it, please unmute yourself and let me know. So just 1 quick second.
The Peace. But what does the man who started the Peace Corps think about it now?
The willingness of all Americans, men and women, young and old, to serve in the Peace Corps, to serve in all parts of the world, to serve at little pay, to do jobs that most of them have never done before, is one of the most encouraging manifestations of the American spirit this country has seen in many years. The Peace Corps gives us a chance to show a side of our country which is too often submerged. Our desire to live in peace, our desire to be of help.
Today, hope endures. In fact, it's as strong as it was when we started our journey in 1961, maybe even stronger. Every day, Peace Corps volunteers and all of us who support them wake up and spend the day working hard to make the world a better place. The larger causes we serve are the farmers in Panama, businesswomen in Albania, students in Rwanda, environmentalists in Jamaica, healthcare workers in South Africa. Our work is manifested in them and the thousands and thousands of others we'll never meet. It's a two-way street. Or, more accurately with Peace Corps, a two-way dirt road or footpath. And that volunteers venture to far-flung corners of the world and bring back to the United States after they serve more knowledge of, compassion for, and ability to ensure peace. They live it, promote it, and never stop sharing it. Peace is the first word of who we are. That our mission and goals haven't changed in nearly 60 years is rare, and so are we. The peace and freedom President Kennedy harnessed then continues now. That spirit still sparks our service. Who are we? We're the Peace Corps.
I hope this spirit will grow, that hundreds of others of young Americans and older Americans will go overseas to show our best side, to show how much we desire to live at peace. There can be no greater service to our country, and no source of pride more real than to be a member of the Peace Corps of the United States. I hope that you will join.
Okay, so I hope that everyone was able to see and hear that. Thanks again for, I guess, bearing with that. So I'll get started with the rest of the presentation. So as I was saying, I hope you can see the screen. I'm Daisy again. So prior to my role as recruiter, I did serve with the Peace Corps as an education volunteer. I was in Ecuador from 2017 through 2019. And my main role there was to work as an English teacher and teacher trainer under the TEFL, which is Teaching English as a Foreign Language program. I also did get a chance to get involved in a number of other projects that we call secondary projects. So I'll get into a little bit more detail about those in a second. And also we do have the regional recruitment supervisor joining us today. So Amy, if you don't mind just quickly doing an introduction about yourself as well.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, good evening, or morning, wherever you're joining from, but I think it's mostly East Coast. My name is Amy Schottner. I served in Peace Corps many years ago in Kenya as a business volunteer. And then I also served in another program called Peace Corps Response in St. Kitts in the Eastern Caribbean, and also again in the business sector. So so happy to be here, and thank you so much for your support of Peace Corps.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. And so as you heard in the video, Peace Corps has been around for quite a while. So we've been around since the 60s, 1961 to be exact. We just celebrated our 60th anniversary a few weeks ago. And so many things have definitely evolved with the program over those years. But one thing that has remained the same and true to the heart of the organization is our mission, which is to promote world peace and friendship. And so we have three main goals that we aim to accomplish through this mission. So the first one is to help the people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained individuals. Really, that's where the volunteers come in. So we hope to send volunteers who are trained and dedicated and are able to meet the needs that are requested from Peace Corps. One little thing that I do like to point out for this goal is that Peace Corps only sends volunteers to countries that request our presence and assistance. So where volunteers go and what they do is really determined by those requests and those partnerships that we have with community members overseas. The second and third goals really speak on the intercultural aspect of the program. So Peace Corps, we have volunteers who live and work at the community level. And so through that, they are promoting a better understanding of Americans and really the rich diversity that exists in the US that's represented through our diverse volunteer body. And on the other side of that, we are also learning and integrating into the communities that we serve. And so we hope to promote a better understanding of other people on the part of Americans. So really, again, it's just that understanding and sharing a global perspective of the people that we work with so that we can all just understand each other a bit better and get to know each other a bit better and realize that really we're not all that different no matter what country we come from. So there are many different reasons to choose a Peace Corps. I'm not going to go through all of them. Personally, for me, I think that that third sort of mission of building relationships, I think this was really significant for me. I sort of joined the Peace Corps a few years after I graduated, although for most positions, you can qualify with a 4-year degree, as I'll go into in a bit, but I joined a couple years after graduating. And so part of my goal was to further develop my skills. That was definitely, a reason I joined, is to sharpen the skills that I already had. But I realized that the most significant part of my experience was really the relationships that I made with community members, fellow volunteers, students, and the teachers that I worked with. So this was really just a significant aspect of the experience for me. So now, in order to actually get involved with the organization as a volunteer, you do need to meet 2 minimum requirements. So one is that you do have to be a US citizen, as we are a federal agency. And the other is that you have to be at least 18 years old. So with both of these, the US citizen status, it's, if you received your citizenship while you became naturalized, a naturalized citizen, or you were born a citizen, either way, or you're in the process of getting your citizenship status, it's just something that you do need to have in order to depart. And then while the minimum age is 18 years old, we actually, in order to qualify for most of the positions, you do need to have either a 4-year degree or at least 5 years of professional work experience. So, this is a great way to get some hands-on experience right after graduating, and to put into practice a lot of the skills that you are gaining as an undergrad student. Since, again, for most of the positions, you can qualify with having that 4-year degree. Additionally, typically we have a little bit over 7,000 students serving on any given year. So I just want to make a quick note, and I'll talk about this a bit more after too. Peace Corps did have to evacuate volunteers last year, so just about a year ago, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So unfortunately, we had to make that tough decision to ensure volunteer safety, which is really our number one priority. So we don't have volunteers serving abroad currently, but we are in the process of having volunteers potentially deployed later this year. And so we're moving forward as things continue to progress regarding the pandemic. And I'm happy to answer other questions regarding that. I'm sure you might be interested in knowing where we are with related to COVID. Okay, and then as far as what volunteers do, I mentioned from my own experience, I was in the education program. So we do have 6 main program areas. So these are our program concentration areas. We have volunteers typically work under one of these. Just keep in mind, these are pretty big umbrellas. So there are a variety of positions and projects and initiatives that fall under each of these. So again, we have agriculture, youth and development, education, the environment, health, and community economic development. Just really briefly, we do have under education and health, these tend to be our biggest request. So meaning that we have typically the most positions available for education volunteers and health volunteers. This does depend on sort of the application cycle and the year and the requests of that year. So it does fluctuate and change, but these tend to be our highest requests. And just to give you a little snippet of each of these concentration areas, within education, English education is a big initiative, but there are also positions with math education, science, computer science, others that work with at the university level, primary education, secondary education. So there are many different, again, types of positions within each. Health initiatives tend to focus on working with HIV and AIDS prevention and education, maternal health, infant health, focusing on nutrition programs. Youth and development volunteers tend to work with youth in the community to empower them, to help them find employment opportunities, build their leadership skills, confidence skills, life skills. Agriculture volunteers tend to partner with small-scale farmers and families to increase food security. They also help communities to adapt to climate change and promote environmental sustainability. Environmental volunteers do tend to focus on environmental awareness, both in schools and communities. And typically they help to empower communities by conserving the local environment and promoting sustainable use of natural resources. And then lastly, community economic development volunteers tend to focus with small scale business owners, entrepreneurs. They teach things like financial literacy, budgeting. They help small scale business owners to connect to the global markets to market their products. So again, just a very broad general description. I'm happy to kind of provide more information about each of our sectors if you have questions at the end. And then a quick comment on secondary projects. So this is really a great opportunity for volunteers to further develop their skills in other areas of their unique interest and skills as well. So secondary projects can actually exist within one of these concentration areas or really outside of these areas too. Just from example, there were a few volunteers in my community in Ecuador that did projects related to music or sports or the arts. So again, these secondary projects can be pretty unique and they can happen sort of at the same time that you're practicing or dedicating time to your primary project. There might be opportunities or extra time that you have to dedicate to additional projects to further engage the community and also to, again, practice additional skills that you may have. So it's a great way to kind of, have some unique projects, and I'll go through what mine were in a little bit. Okay, and then as far as where volunteers serve, so this is just a map of our country partners. So Peace Corps serves in over 60 different countries around the world, as you can see, primarily in developing nations. So again, the regions are Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, Asia, and the Pacific Islands. So even though we did have to evacuate volunteers, as I mentioned before, we still have active partnerships with all of the countries that we were partnering with before the pandemic. So that means that each country is basically fully staffed. We still have host country national staff and Peace Corps staff that are basically just waiting, eagerly waiting for the arrival of volunteers and preparing for volunteer arrival and for the projects that, you know, will shape what volunteers do once we're able to return. So we do still have these active partnerships, and when I go through the application process, you actually are able to apply with preferences in regions and countries at the moment. So you'll see, as I explain later on, that, you know, if you are interested in a particular region of the world, you can potentially apply to a country in that region. I did see maybe a question in the chat box. I'm not actually able to see it right now, but I think something popped up. So if, you know, if I address it, if it's pertinent for me to address it now, let me know. If not, we can wait till the end. All right, so I just want to delve really quickly to take you to my own experience as a Peace Corps volunteer. So again, I did serve in Ecuador, which is located in South America, from 2017 through 2019. And so this, my experience and time in Ecuador was really significant for me, and I really enjoyed it, and the reason I'm still with the organization now. So I kind of just wanted to show you, this is just a map of Ecuador. So first, and something that is actually typical for all Peace Corps volunteers, is that the initial 3 months when you first arrive to the host country, you're actually you're going through pre-service training. So this is a training that all Peace Corps volunteers receive that is pretty intensive. Both you're going through language training, technical training in your sector, for your position, safety and security training and health training. So all things that you need to basically live and work there for 2 years, you review and train in that information. So my training took place in Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador. And that's, if you're able to see it, hopefully it's not too small. It's a little red square in the center of the country in the Andes region. And my permanent site was where I lived and worked for 2 years. And again, Peace Corps is a commitment of 27 months. So the 3 months of training and 2 years of living in your community. And I was in the coast. So in the southern coast where that big rest star is, close to the Pacific Ocean. So this was my site. It was called Machala, Ecuador. And I just wanted to show you quickly some pictures from my service. I did live with a host family, which is pretty common for the majority of volunteers at some point during their service. This really does vary though, so keep that in mind. Every single Peace Corps volunteer's experience is very unique to them. So some volunteers live with the host families for a portion of the 2 years, others live with host families the entire 2 years. Again, it varies from country to country. But in Ecuador, in Machala, I did get to live with a host family for about 6 months. And so you can see my host mom and host dad and my little host brother. I'm still really close to them. I talk to them often on WhatsApp. My host dad actually came to the US to visit back in 2018. He got to meet my family here. So we are, you know, me and the host parents are still really good friends. They're kind of younger too, so it was more of a friendship rather than like a parent role. And then after that, I did have the option of moving out on my own in Ecuador. And so I just put a picture of my apartment, that tall yellow building. I actually lived on the top floor. It was just a 1-bedroom apartment that was super close to my school placement. So for me, it was just beneficial to be a little closer to where I worked. And one of the ways that I really bonded with communities, with my family, was through food. And so anytime anyone, you know, offered me food or anything like that, or to try a traditional dish, I always said yes, because I love trying new things. And so the bottom picture is a traditional style of cooking, different things. So you can cook fish mainly, or I know they also cook chicken this way, like a whole chicken. So this one was preparing fish. It's over like a traditional oven, and it's so delicious. It's wrapped in banana leaves. So you open up the banana leaves and you have kind of like a steamed meal inside. So usually it would be fish. Very delicious. I miss it. And then as I said, I worked as an English teacher. So my assignment was to partner with an English school that focused on both, that had both middle school and high school students. So I worked with a wide range of students, and total there were over 5,000 students that I worked with. It was a huge school, the biggest school in my province. And I really enjoyed my experience. I partnered with the English department that had over 16 teachers. So we did a ton of different projects. Just keep in mind for partnership, for Peace Corps roles, the role of a volunteer is really to support your counterparts. So your community members that you're working alongside with your colleagues. So I never really taught just on my own. My role was really to co-teach, to further develop the capacities of teachers, and to just support them with different initiatives throughout the school. That included developing the curriculum for the English department, hosting events such as English competitions, a talent show that we had in English, things like kind of a regular verb contest or spelling bee. So again, this was more of a partnership with my colleagues in Ecuador. And then as far as secondary projects, I really wanted to, work a little bit more with young people outside of just the classroom. So for some of the secondary projects, I partnered with youth and development volunteers, and we had summer camps that basically talked about all different types of topics. Some of them ranged from talking about gender equity. So we, had conversations about girl empowerment and confidence and machismo, which can be, toxic masculinity and things like that in Ecuadorian culture. And we also help them to kind of build leadership skills and focus on building employability skills so that they were ready after graduating from high school to go straight to the workforce, which is pretty common in Ecuador. We, of course, had a lot of fun with it. So we had students get into different teams, and they had a team name, team color, and we gave the seniors and juniors of the school kind of opportunities to be leaders in these activities. So they helped to create activities. A lot of this was student-led. So again, the ideas for activities were really coming from students themselves. We just kind of helped facilitate it all. I want to say this is probably the highlight of my service, these summer camps that we hosted. They were a ton of fun. And it really gave me a way to kind of get to know my students a little bit better outside of just the classroom. Of course, Peace Corps service is more than just, your work, even though of course it is around your projects. But I did get to explore the country as well. That was something that was really enriching for me. And I wanted to kind of get to know all parts of Ecuador. Ecuador is very diverse. They have different climates and regions. There's the Amazon region, the Andes region, the Galapagos Islands, and the coast. So these are pictures from all different regions across Ecuador. Okay, so I definitely want to be aware of time, but I'm going to go through some of the benefits of Peace Corps service, both while you're a volunteer and then after service. And then I'll talk about the application process, and then we'll go to questions. So as far as benefits go, there are definitely a set of benefits while you're serving. And actually, even before starting service, keep in mind that there is no fee for Peace Corps. So you don't have to apply, you don't have to pay to apply. Travel, if you're accepted into the program, travel from the US to your host country, all of that is paid for by Peace Corps. There are some there's a medical clearance you have to go through, and you can potentially get reimbursed up to a certain amount for that medical process. And then once you're accepted and living and working in the country you're assigned to, you do receive a living stipend. So this stipend basically covers all your basic necessities while you're living and working there: food, transportation, housing, all of that is covered by the stipend. Just keep in mind that it is at the sort of average income level of the community that you're serving. So that stipend amount will depend on the community that you work in. As far as housing goes, Peace Corps does help connect volunteers to safe housing. Again, as I mentioned, typically that can be with a host family, or housing does look all different ways depending on the country that you serve in, but it does have to be something that is approved by Peace Corps. You also do have medical and dental coverage while you're a volunteer. So again, during the time that you serve as a volunteer, if you have a medical need or medical emergency, there are actually medical staff at every single country, at every post. So you are able to contact someone if you need medical care, or again, if you need access to certain medication. Again, that's something that's covered by Peace Corps. If you have student loans, so this is a big question I often get, you actually are able to place your federally funded loans on deferment. So you can defer those loans during the time that you're a Peace Corps volunteer. And Perkins loans may qualify for partial or full cancellation. That's on a case-by-case basis. And then as far as vacation time goes, so you do receive vacation time. It's a total of 48 days throughout the 2 years. So you're kind of accruing like 2 days per month or so. And again, that's your vacation time, so you can use that as you wish. In addition to that, of course, you're building a ton of really important skills potentially to help you find employment after you complete service. So again, you're going through training with Peace Corps in your technical sector, and you're building intercultural competency skills, language skills, and again, skills in your sector. As I mentioned, there is a medical officer in every single country that you work in. So you will have someone, that you can contact 24/7. At the same time, there are also safety and security staff. So this is an assigned staff member that's basically there to ensure that volunteers are able to serve and be safe in their sites. So that is another staff member that you can contact at any moment if you do have sort of a safety concern. Okay, and so after completing service, right, you devote 2 full years of your life to Peace Corps and to our mission. So there are a set of benefits that come with completing service. And so one of those is the what are called transition funds. So this is a readjustment allowance that basically helps return volunteers to readjust back to life in the US. These are funds that are deposited directly into the volunteers' US bank accounts. It's completely up to the volunteer how they use these funds. And just, as of 2020, it is $10,000. It is taxed though, so just be aware of that. So again, that's a readjustment allowance that every single returned volunteer receives. There are a set of graduate school benefits. I'm going to actually go into a little bit more detail regarding those benefits in the next slide. And as far as professional networking and career services, you are part of a really large returned volunteer group. So because Peace Corps has been around since, the 60s, basically, there's a whole network of returned volunteers. There's a National Peace Corps Association, and you are able to kind of receive guidance and support to connect you to employment opportunities and career services to, get you to be competitive in the job market and find employment once you complete service. One of the other benefits, direct benefits, which Professor Marcus was referring to in the beginning too, is that if you are interested in working for the federal government, there's a direct benefit called non-competitive eligibility. So we call it NCE for short. So this non-competitive eligibility is basically an advantage for federal employment. You do have the status for up to 12 months once you complete your service. So this status basically, it allows you to apply to positions within the federal government in a non-competitive kind of process. So again, if you're interested in working for the State Department, any other agency, Health and Human Services, Environmental Protection Agency, Homeland Security, really any agency within the federal government, you can use the status to help, find a position in that department. So it's a great benefit to take advantage of if that's something that you see your path going towards federal employment. Another benefit is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. This is something that you're able to opt into. You do have to apply to this program separately, but the 2 years that you serve as a Peace Corps volunteer counts towards this. I think it's a 10-year goal for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. And you can also extend your health insurance for up to 2 months. And this is a Peace Corps health insurance that you're able to apply to and have after service. So again, it's sort of like an in-between benefit before you find, something more stable as far as health insurance. Okay, and then as far as graduate school benefits go, I mentioned this is a really big benefit. This is something that if you are interested in continuing your studies and doing graduate school, Peace Corps actually has a partnership with over 100 different universities throughout the country. A couple of those are in PA. And this provides a scholarship that covers either a portion of tuition or full tuition. It depends on the program and the university. So we do have a list of all of the programs on our website. I'm happy to share that link with you all if you're interested in, maybe just browsing through those. And this is a lifetime eligibility, so it doesn't expire after a certain amount of time. You can either decide to, use this benefit right after you complete Peace Corps service, or maybe years down the road. Again, you kind of have this eligibility for life, and it covers things like financial aid, scholarships, fee application waivers, and tuition coverage for some of them. So again, that amount depends on the university and program, but this is a really great benefit if you are considering graduate school. Okay, so let's do a quick time check. So really quickly, I'm going to go through the application process and then we can open it up for questions. So if you are interested in getting involved with Peace Corps, just be aware that to go through the application process, we suggest that you give yourself about 9 to 12 months or so to complete the process. Typically, we have positions posted on our website about a year in advance. So you'll see positions that are posted right now under volunteer openings. They have potential departure dates from a year from now, so early 2022, or sort of the projected departure dates right now. So this applies if you are a senior, you actually can go ahead and apply now. If you're a junior, you would want to wait, again, that 9 to 12 months before you graduate. So that would be like about the fall semester of this year for you. And really the very first step that we suggest is that you connect with a recruiter. So I'm your recruiter. If you're a Villanova student, I'm happy to connect with you afterwards. I can help sort of review your resume. If you have questions as to what program might be the best fit for you, how to put your best foot forward in the application, all of that, I'm happy to provide tips. So just be aware for that second step for the application, I do suggest reaching out before applying. For the actual application, you will need to upload a resume. You'll need 3 references and then also a statement of interest. So for those 3 components, I have plenty of tips to share with you all regarding what to include or not include in the resume, an essay, and who should be or shouldn't be your reference and things like that. For the rest of the process, again, I won't go into too much detail, but just be aware that you will have to submit a health history form. So this is a form that it's part of the application. We ask that you submit this to basically help us decide, where you can serve depending on any medical needs you may have. If you need access to specific medication or anything like that, we want to make sure that you're placed in a country that can meet those medical needs. There is an interview process. It's a virtual interview that takes place with a placement officer, so you have to go through that as well. After that, there is a formal invitation to serve with the Peace Corps. Once you accept, if you've gone through that process, there is still medical and legal clearance. There's the onboarding process, which is your visa paperwork, passport paperwork, and then departure, which is the fun part where you get to actually travel to the host country. So again, it can be a bit of a lengthy process, so we do recommend that you give yourself at least 9 months to go through this process. Okay, so move forward. There might be a question, but this is just a quick screenshot of what you can see on our website. So if you are interested in browsing those positions, you can sort of, can filter them through sectors. So if you have a particular interest in a specific field, for example, if you're like, I'm really just want to serve as a health volunteer, you can browse through those. You can filter them through language requirement, regions, and then also if you're interested in serving as a couple, which is an option to serve as a couple, you can also filter the positions that way. So, all right, I think I've been talking for a while, so I'm gonna pause here, and I would love to open it up for questions. This is just my contact information too. I'm happy to connect, as I said, in the future as well. So, yeah, please let me know if there are questions. Feel free to unmute yourself, or if there haven't been any in the chat box, let me know.
Daisy, I have a question.
Sure.
When reviewing applications, what types of experiences stick out and just have like help a candidate stick out from others?
Yeah, so I think quite a variety of things. I think it depends on the type of position that they've applied to, but generally Peace Corps, we're a service agency. So anyone who has done volunteer work in the past, whether, through a student organization, I know a lot of student orgs on campus have sort of a goal of being involved in the community or doing volunteer work. So any involvement of that nature, of doing service work in your own community or school community, I always encourage applicants to include that in their resumes. The one thing with Peace Corps is that the resume actually can be up to 3 pages. And so you have plenty of room to include more experiences that you might not include in a typical, like standard, like 1-page resume. So things like volunteer work, involvement in student organizations or leadership positions in student organizations. If a student has had a study abroad experience, or something like, I know there are sometimes options for alternative spring breaks and where you're doing service work. So things like that, I would always recommend that applicants include in the resume. So that definitely helps you to stand out. Flexibility is also key. So if someone, really the more, for example, regions that you're open to serving in, with Peace Corps, we're looking for individuals who are adaptable, can sort of roll with, the challenges that come with service abroad. So showing that you're flexible in your placement can be to the benefit of the applicant too.
Can I
Wonderful,
maybe
thank you.
suggest something that the students who are here, if you're comfortable, would you just quickly introduce yourselves and give us what background and majors you have and why you potentially might be interested in the Peace Corps? So that might be sort of open up the conversation a little bit. Caleb, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. I'm a senior history Spanish double major. So I just heard about this opportunity from one of my advisors, and I am I just love international experiences. Just coming from a family that we didn't really have much time, need to travel abroad, but whenever I was able to, whether through church mission trips or I studied abroad 2 years ago in Spain. So whenever I get those opportunities, I really do treasure them. And the Peace Corps just sounded like an awesome opportunity just to engage with my passions regarding that, but also my passions of service. And I've done a lot of I've done some work internationally through my church, serving the community, and I would just love another opportunity to do that again. And I just think of it just as a perfect way. The Peace Corps will allow me not just to travel and immerse myself in another culture, language, but also doing work, doing good work.
Well, thank you very much for sharing this. Derek, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you're there.
Yeah, hi. I'm an econ Spanish major. I don't know, I'm interested in the Peace Corps because as an econ major, I'm interested in working in like international development, helping poor areas of the world develop. I also, I like to travel. I like to experience new things. So it seemed like it's a interesting opportunity to merge passions and get valuable experience.
Okay. Well, thank you, Derek. So since we're recording this, maybe just I'll add a couple more questions, so that we have them recorded. I mean, how does a Peace Corps differ, for example, from a Fulbright? Just, if somebody is trying to figure out, Fulbright versus Peace Corps.
So I believe that Fulbright for most of the positions are 1-year positions, and they're sort of like a grant that an individual receives to go and do a very particular detailed project. I'm not a representative for Fulbright, so I don't know the details of exactly the variety of projects or countries that they serve in. But with Peace Corps, we tend to have a history of partnering with the countries that we have current partnerships with. So it's very community driven, the work that we do. So a lot of the positions that volunteers take on, the projects that they take on, are projects that hopefully will be continued after the volunteers there. So it's not something that's taking place just during the time that the volunteer is there. Again, we do hope that those projects are continued by community members that the volunteers work with. And we are a 2-year program. At least, you can commit to the initial volunteer program. Volunteers are able to extend if they wish for an additional year or at a time. So I'm just some of the initial kind of differences that I can think of. Again, I'm not sure of the full details of the Fulbright program.
Okay. And what do you anticipate sort of, you did, presumably you didn't take on any new volunteers last year because of the COVID. Will there be a huge backlog or what are the prospects for somebody who might be applying, a year out?
Sure. So we do have a separate application process for the evacuees. So there were, individuals who were evacuated, who, if they're able, if they can return them, there's a different application process for them. And then there's a new application for new applicants and interested applicants. We have kept the applications open for most of last year. I guess positions will continue to open on a country by country basis. So we won't have a huge, deployment at a time with, our typical 7,000 volunteers all going back to the host countries at a time. It will sort of be in a country by country basis. So as far as backlog, I think we're working with applicants who applied last year who will have, I think, somewhat priority in departing later this year. And then with newer applicants, again, those positions are for the following year, for 2022. So we're kind of dealing with we didn't have as many applications as well because of international kind of, I think it was just international travel wasn't something a lot of people are thinking about. So we are kind of dealing with that slowly, and hopefully we'll be able to return to every country and deploy as many volunteers as we can, depending on the needs.
Derek and Caleb, do you have a question?
Yes, you brought up host families in your presentation. So you live with a host family. Is that the same for everyone who participates in the Peace Corps, or is that country specific, program specific?
That depends. Yeah, it's country specific. So most volunteers, though, do live with a host family, at least for the pre-service training aspect of Peace Corps. So those initial 3 months we first arrive to the host country, that initial training time, typically I want to say for almost every country that we serve in, volunteers tend to live with host families for at least that time. Then after that, it really depends on a country by country basis, whether volunteers will continue to live with a host family or will be able to find their own housing. Again, it varies. Some positions do require that you live with a host family for the full 2 years. Off the top of my head, I know like Colombia, that was a requirement for them. Other countries require maybe only a month of living with a host family. I know, again, just off the top of my head, Thailand only required volunteers to live with host family for like 1 month. So this varies, but we do have that information on our website too, so you can learn about the living conditions for each country. from our website. You can sort of browse each country and what the living conditions are for each one.
And maybe we can have a follow-up question to the one that Taylor asked at the beginning. In terms of the criteria for selecting, I mean, how important is your GPA relative to language skills, relative to service experiences, right? I mean, is this, this I guess was what partly the Fulbright question. The Fulbright question is sort of, strictly an academic one, right? I mean, it's more of the same that the kids have gone through. And I'm just sort of wondering whether the Peace Corps has a little bit of a broader sort of spectrum of criteria that you take into consideration, and thereby might be, an avenue for somebody who's not a straight A student, but put their interests in other things and might use this as a venue.
Yeah, so I actually think it's kind of what you mentioned, we might be at the other side of that, where we don't focus just on academics. We really are looking more at a well-rounded student who demonstrates a strong desire and interest for service. So, whether they do that through their experiences as an undergrad student, or again, how they portray kind of their desire to serve through the essay that they have to submit. So we're not just looking at transcripts, although undergrad students are required to upload transcripts. That's not just our focus. We really are looking at, the more well-rounded experiences that the applicants had. So we do look at everything from volunteer experience to relevant coursework, of course. There are, majors that make sense for the sectors that they're serving in. But really, again, that kind of passion for service, that says a lot, I think, about the applicants that we look for and how they portray, themselves through both the interview and statement and resume. So it's kind of different components that we tend to look at.
Okay, great to see that there's some places that have a more holistic take on things.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So I definitely, I don't want anyone to feel discouraged too. Like if they, didn't exactly do, so many hours of service or anything like that. If they're curious about the program, again, just reaching out, and I'm happy to talk to anyone and look through their resume, or talk about their experience as an undergrad student and see if this would be a good fit for them. I think we have so many different positions and needs that there's something for almost everyone, again, from any major to definitely political science students do tend to kind of gravitate towards Peace Corps positions, but really any major too, we accept students from all majors.
I have another question, that's all right. So regarding this the selection process, how competitive can we expect this the selection process to be?
Yeah, the competitiveness of Peace Corps really depends on a couple of different things. So it'll depend on the type of preferences the applicants select in the application. Because you can select specific regions and countries, and also sectors. There are some, for example, regions of the world or countries that tend to be more competitive than others. So we tend to receive a higher amount of applications, for example, for Morocco or Thailand, because they tend to be a bit more maybe touristy or popular destinations versus other countries, maybe even in the same regions, like Timor-Leste, for example, a country in Southeast Asia that doesn't always receive as many applications. So that's just an example. But that, your preferences, that will depend how competitive you are, how big of a pool you are up against basically for those positions. Typically, again, this is a little different this year because of the cycle that we've had. But typically we would have around 6,000 or so positions available per year, and we would receive somewhere from 4 to 5 times as many applications as we had positions. So it can be a bit competitive, but again, it depends on how you apply. The more regions that you express interest in, the more open and flexible you are to your placement, the more likely it is that you will be placed somewhere versus having a very narrow kind of preference.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This was super informative. I'm happy we got a recording of it so we can send it out to the other students that registered but weren't able to make this event. So I think that's it. We're at 4:59. Again,
Yeah.
Caleb, Derek, thanks for hanging in there and asking really good questions. And Marcus, same thing. I mean, the Fulbright question was really insightful, and that'll be helpful for me when I'm having counseling appointments with students in the Career Center. So,
Yeah.
oh no, that's it.
So thanks for doing this. I mean, my major takeaway is just the incredible support system that you provide for students. So, you know, it's not like you just send them off. There's a lot of preparation and support system for things that might be going wrong. So, you know, if students who are interested but are a little bit leery, or parents are leery sending their kids, particularly females, right, off to faraway places, there's a lot of support system there. So that I think was great to know. And your point about the preferential status you get for governmental jobs, right? That had come up in that earlier talk, where, you know, the federal government has to give preference to people who done military service. So they automatically move to the front of the line, and if they're somehow qualified, they get the job. That's a huge advantage, and you get that same status with the Peace Corps. And what the person was saying, not only do you move ahead of the line, but very often the militaries end up applying for jobs for which they're not really qualified, right? And so the recruiters look particularly for Peace Corps volunteers, right? And so that puts you in a really, really competitive position. So
For sure. This is definitely
thanks so
something-
much. This was great. And thanks, Caleb and Derek, for hanging in there and making this a worthwhile event. Okay?
Yeah,
Bye-bye,
thank you so
everybody.
much.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.